Today, let's get you to win with any kill team in 3rd edition by knowing your win condition. Now, for Kill Team 3.0, finding your path to victory is going to be a significant departure from how you pursued victory in 2nd edition. I'm going to talk about what scoring looks like in KT3 and then talk about the main strategies that I see for winning. Even if you're making Kill Team more killy, it's still points teams, even if you're scoring those points from killing. For a recap, in 2nd edition, you had a primary mission and 3 Tac Ops. Each Tac Ops had a max of 2 points each for a total of 6, and then the primary objective allowed you to score up to 4 points per turn, so tying on primaries was 3 each, winning was getting 4, and losing was just getting 1 or 2. This means that you were gunning for those primary objectives every single turning point and sacrificing your operatives to do so because your operatives were just tools to do the primary objective and Tac Ops. You fought the enemy to deny them victory points, not because killing them scored you points. This is dramatically different in 3rd edition. Now you have 3 primary ways of scoring. First, the kill op, second, the crit op, and third, the Tac Op. You can also apply a modifier to one of these of your choosing, scoring 1.5 times on the one you choose. This is you designating a primary op. This is basically your mission objective, your secondary, and kill points. Before I go into strategy, let's talk about each of these real quick. Kill op requires you to, as you guessed it, incapacitate enemy operatives. You do this by actually referencing the kill grade table. So say you're fighting Vet Guard, known as Krieg now, who have 14 operatives. You get a VP when 3, 6, 8, 11, and 14 models are incapacitated. You also get a VP if, at the end of turning point 4, you have a higher kill grade than your opponent. This means you can score up to 6 on the kill op. The crit op is your new standard objectives, just like in KT2, but we've gone back to the age of Season 1 of Kill Team, where you didn't have that crit ops mission pack, so now you have 9 crit ops missions. You don't just have loot, secure, and capture. Just like in KT2's start, you have some of these 9, which are dubious. You, of course, have, secure loot and capture type things, but you also have things like Intel, where you spend an AP and objective to give it a point, it ticks up, and then you pick it up, and then at the end of the game, who has those in control score points. We'll talk about more about each mission in detail, too, but these are tough. Unlike KT2, there are only 3 objective markers for the crit ops, not 6. Plus, you can only score a max of 2 VP per turning point from the crit op. And you can't score during the first turning point, so this means you can only score about max of 6 from each crit op. This is the same max as the kill op, so they're equally worth pursuing technically. We're going to get into more details in a second, but then we have the Tac Op. We still have our archetypes, that being Recon, Seek, Destroy, Security, Infiltration, but they each only have 3 options. And you only get 1 Tac Op to score for the whole game, and you can score a max of, you guessed it, 6 VP from the Tac Op. 2 per turning point, but no scoring on the first turning point, as usual. This means you can score a max of 6 VP from the kill op, 6 from the crit op, and 6 from the Tac Op, and then your primary op is giving you 1.5 times on one of those, so you're getting about, 19 max VP per game-ish. That's technically a win condition, but you're not going to do that every game, let alone ever, I think. So let's break down all the crit ops, all the Tac Ops, and some of the actual achievable scenarios that get you towards a win. So crit ops. Good lord, there's a lot of them. This will take us some time. We're going to go one at a time, and I will rank these with the following gut instinct. Green means, hey, they're easy to score, they're worth paying attention to. Yellow, these are hard, but focusing on them won't actively hurt you. And lastly, red, these are like, wow, focusing on these could actually completely throw you the game. Starting with secure. It's like secure in KT2, tap an objective for 1 AP, you keep it till an enemy taps it, but you can't tap it if someone else controls it. But you can't do it in melee range, and you can't tap nor score in the first turning point. It's a very reasonable mission, not being able to tap till turning point 2, and then you don't score till the end. It's kind of tricky to guarantee. There's only 3 on the map. So if an enemy jumps on the middle one and taps it, you need to kill that operative before you can then go run onto it. This one's a solid green for me though, because all the other ones are much worse than this. Get ready. Loot is great. It's maybe the best one in this edition. Just like KT2, tap an objective. You can't do it if it's already looted. You score twice per turning point, but you can deny the enemy their loot. You can still do the loot action. You just won't get a 3rd victory point. This is worth fighting for, as it's just guaranteed victory points from doing it and tapping it, which is not like these other ones. That's a green. Transmission. This is like Secure from KT2, but it only lasts till the start of the next turning point. So you have to keep tapping them and turning them on to score. This is solid, but it's more AP ineffective. Green, yellow. Upload. Upload, you start ticking up points on objective markers. Each time you spend an AP, you remove all the enemy upload points and add one of your own. At the end of each turning point after the first, you can score markers that you have one or more of the upload points on. 1 VP per upload point, but this seems tricky. You have to prevent your opponent from just wasting your time by dumping lots of AP into an upload marker and then have your opponent wipe it all away. I suspect most games with this objective will see each player only having their home objective reliably score anything, with the middle objective swinging to one player for maybe one more point. So that's maybe only like 3 to 4 points per player, maybe only just 2. This is a solid red. Fighting this will waste your AP, I think, more often than not. Intel, you tap an objective marker to start ticking up points on it, and you can pick it up once it has between 0 to 3. You should do it if it has at least 1. And if you have control of that marker that you picked it up, whether or not it's actually being carried, you score at the end of the game depending on the amount of Intel points on it. This one also sounds like another that you're wasting a bunch of AP on it just to have your opponent come up and steal it. Worth using on your back point, but don't spend a ton of resources on the middle one. This is a red. Extraction. Tap an objective to search it. You get a VP for tapping the first and third marker to be tapped, and 2 VP for the second marker to get tapped. When the third marker is tapped, that one can be picked up, and then it gives you a debuff, and then you also get to score 1 VP at the end of each turning point if you control that picked up marker, but you also get 2 if it's the first turning point. This one's really interesting. If you do the old 1-2 punch in the home objective and the center objective on turning point 2, you get 3 VP, but then your opponent gets to tap their home objective for 1 and gets to pick up and run away with the objective marker. So this objective seems like it'll result in either your opponent blundering or you both stalling until the end of the game, and it'll just be a wild swing. This is like a yellow. I think you need to pay attention to it or you will just lose because it's tricky. But I don't think you can reliably score this without it being a big mess. Are you seeing the theme now? Sabotage. You can score by controlling objectives at the end of the turning point. You get 1 from the center line objective and 1 from the one in your opponent's territory, but you get nothing from your own. You can also tap the objective in your opponent's territory for 1 VP, but that means you can't score it at the end of the turning point. Basically what this means is you can score the middle one by standing on it, and you can score the one in your opponent's territory by either tapping or standing on it. You get nothing from your own objective. So this is very low scoring. I'm calling this a red. This is hard. Score it when you can, but don't rely on this. Power Surge. One player selects an objective to be surged, but you can't select one that's already been selected, and this happens when you play strategic gambits, and it starts with the player who had initiative first, and then it alternates. You can tap the objectives that have been surged. Tapping a surged objective gives you VP, and then if you control the surged marker at the end of the turning point, you also get a VP, and then you get a third if you just control more objectives overall than your opponent. This sounds kind of like a nightmare. On turning point 2, the player with initiative can tap their home objective, score it, stand on it, and then stop you from taking the middle one, and then you're sort of forced to do this okay, what am I selecting? My home one now? I think this could have some mind games, but overall, I don't know how I feel about this one. It seems really reliant on the initiative roll, so don't make this your primary, but you should fight over this. It's a yellow. Coordinates. You tap a home objective to tick up its counter. Then you score VP at the end of the 4th turning point for each objective marker that has 1 point ticked up on it. And you get 2 VP for the one in your opponent's drop zone, and you get another one for each objective marker that has more ticks on it. This seems pretty reasonable. You can tick your home objective in the 1st and 2nd turning point, I believe. I think you can only do mission actions in the 2nd turning point overall as a core rule, so it's probably just the 2nd. Then you can tick the middle objective, so you probably got 3 VP from that going off the bat here. And so as long as you have more than your opponent on the middle objective, you can sort of get ahead. You can sort of go and run down and steal your opponents too if you want, but overall I think this has some play. I'd put this as a soft green. And that's all of them. That's all 9. That was a lot. Take a deep breath. The TLDR here is that I think the ones that are solid to play around are coordinates, loot, secure, and maybe transmission. And the other ones are alright, but the ones I don't think I'll ever prioritize or put as my primary are sabotage, intel, and upload. You're going to start seeing a pattern here. If each of the 3 ops can score a max of 6 points, winning sort of relies you on scoring about 4 to 5 VP from at least one or all of them. And this is going to look at being, for the crit ops, 1 VP turning point 2, 2 VP turning point 3, and 2 VP turning point 4. You're really not going to be able to get 2 in the second turning point often. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We got all the Tac Ops to do now, so buckle in. Let's do this. Recon. Confirm kill. You kill a guy, then you control their dead body. For your melee team, seems decent. Green. Recover items. It's recover item from KT2, but way harder. Your opponent gets to place the ones that are like over in the middle of the board, and you need to get all 3 to get the full 6 VP. It's like yellow. I mean, I think you can get 2, which gets you 4 VP, which is like fine, but not great. Plant beacons has really limited placement, and good lord does it take up a lot of AP. It's like 2 AP per turning point, and you have to keep placing them, and they have to be like 6 inches away from each other. Harder than recover items, depending on the team. It's not great. Yellow, seek and destroy. Overrun, it's like rob and ransack, sort of. You have to get in your opponent's territory and then start killing. Honestly, it seems great for a lot of teams, and you'll be doing this anyways, especially melee teams, so green. Storm objective. Control an objective that the enemy controlled or is in your opponent's territory and you score a VP. I mean, I don't know how you can keep scoring this. It relies on your opponent repeatedly ceding territory to you and then you taking it back. Super easy to deny after the first point is scored, and then you're supposed to be able to score 6 off of this. This is a solid red. Champion. Select an operative at the start of each turning point, and then your champion has to get 2 kills or kill 1 guy with 12 or more wounds. I think, wow, this is going to be like super swingy. Maybe good for elites, but like overrun, I think it's still better. Yellow. Security. Contain. This is just hold them back in KT2, but it's just as hard, so red. Take ground. This one's weird. Seize ground, but it's different. It now has to be within your opponent's territory, which means it's going to be like super map dependent. I can see this being easy for teams with a ton of APL control, and plus you score it during the game, not the end now. I think overall it might be green for some teams, but really map dependent. Secure center. Hey, it's central control. It's just as solid before. I'm surprised I'm saying that. Green. Infiltration starts with surveillance. This one seems promising. It's 1 AP spent per turning point, and if you're smart, I think it's pretty reliable. Green. Implant. Ouch. You need to keep implanted operatives alive. This is really tricky and maybe only promising versus more durable teams, but even then you're probably like wanting to kill them because they're scoring you points now rather than just implanting them. Yellow, but like really maybe I think this is a red. Wiretap. This is just bad. You're basically trying to make your opponent walk into a tripwire, and like if you're doing it in such a way that it's, you're putting it on top of them, you could just sort of do implant, but like you're getting more VP out of implant than you would with this thing. I don't know how wiretap is even in this game. It's red. And that's all of them. Wow, they're all pretty hard. Broadly, I see confirm kill, overrun, take ground, center, and surveillance as the best ones, with most of the other ones just being bad. So what does this all mean? What did I just spend 13 minutes talking about? Well, taking what we know now, we can now start to see something of a strategy starting to take place. Turning point 1, you're only going to be able to score the kill op, so you're sort of just taking picks and setting up for turn 2. And then in turn 2 and beyond, you're trying to maximize your crit op and tac op while getting enough kills to score at least 4 on the kill op. A tie game sees each of you scoring an average of at least 3 or less on each objective, and a winning game sees you scoring an average of 4 or more on each objective. But what's really the path to victory here? Well, we need to identify what's worth making our primary op. That's the one that gets you 1.5 times at the end of the game on one of those things. So here's the chart. If you score 6 on your primary op, you're actually getting 9. If you score 5, you get 8 because you're rounding up. 4 to 6, 3 to 5, 2 to 3, and then 1 to 2. So, hey, that changes up the math quite a bit, huh? Like, messing up your primary op choice will lose you 2 to 3 VP. Almost a whole op's worth of VP, so you gotta choose it well. I think this means that your win condition is going to rely upon which objective you think you can achieve the most thoroughly, and then assigning your primary op to that objective. You'll always have control over which tac op you take, so you should know how easily your team is able to secure your tac op, particularly the tac ops which your enemy can't deny very easily seem worth taking as a primary op. Additionally, any objective that you know you can get 5 out of is really good. So that's when you start getting that extra 3 VP, because you get 3 extra from 5 and 3 extra from 6, but only 2 from 4. The kill op is a great example of this. Rarely will you ever table your opponent, so getting 6 from the kill op seems pretty hard, but getting 5 seems reasonable, especially 4. The crit ops are tough to get 5 or 6 out of, but I think you can get 3 or 4, which isn't awful, but like some of these crit ops are garbage and you won't get even maybe 3 or 4 out of them, so you never really should be making these your primary. And then back on Tac Ops, ops like surveillance seem like ones that you could really form your strategy around completing, and I think you could really lock in 5 or 6 from those and would be great for the primary. So like in summary, stick your primary op on the kill op if your team is great at killing. Stick your primary on the tac op if you've got a great tac op, and if you suck at both, you're probably going to struggle this edition, as you probably just sort of hope to like roll a good crit op, like loot. If you get loot, you might be in business, but if you get something else, you might be in trouble. Good opponents will be thinking like you, so at some point, fighting for just the kill op and the tac op will net you pretty much just equal points, and that's why it's not worth just ignoring the crit op. But you won't need to prioritize it enough to sort of make it your primary. You'll just need to make sure that you're matching your opponent on the objectives here. If your opponent is like going hard into the crit op, you can either leverage that by denying them other points or using it to kill them more, or you can, put your own APL into being spent on the crit op to be able to match them and then outdo them in other ways. I don't think many teams are going to be able to just focus the crit op and raw APL spend enough to have it swing the game in their favor, so be aware of that. In summary, we are in the season of killing and tac ops. Rip the crit op main objectives. Vetguard will cry in its corner now. If you have questions, please put them in the comments. I didn't receive advanced copies of the rules or anything, so this is all speculation. If I'm wildly wrong, I'll delete this and upload new thoughts, but I feel like this is reasonable. I plan on maining scouts for the new edition, so what I'm sort of looking at, for example, is I think I'm going to be scoring surveillance, and that's going to be one that's going to be super easy to get. I'll be looking at making that my primary, unless I go up against teams that have enough runes where my shotguns are going to be able to just like eat them alive. And then crit op, I'm just going to, flex as I need to. Scouts don't have a ton of APL, so, doing things on the primary op, the crit op is going to be pretty hard, but we'll see how that goes. So I think this is sort of my strategy for scouts. You should apply this sort of thinking to your teams and see what things work best for them. Again, I didn't get any cool kid YouTuber review copies, so I'm waiting for the full launch to get you a guide on the scouts and actually sit down and play them a whole ton, because I haven't even gotten to do that yet. So soon, it's going to happen. I'm Venture Minis. Check out my Instagram. Have a great day.